The morning of my daughter's baby shower, I stood in my closet holding a dress the color of a traffic cone, and I thought, my own sister picked this out for me on purpose. I'm 54 years old. I've buried a husband, raised 2 children, mostly alone, and spent the last decade rebuilding a life I'm genuinely proud of. I don't rattle easily anymore. But I stood there that morning with that dress in my hands and felt something I hadn't felt since I was a teenager living under my mother's roof. Small. Let me back up, because none of this makes sense without the years underneath it. My name is Linda. I have one sister, Carol, 2 years older than me. Growing up, Carol was the one who got noticed first, walked first, talked first, and our mother never let either of us forget it. Carol was the miracle baby after 2 miscarriages, and I came along 3 years later as what my mother once called, in front of company, the easy one. Thank God. I was 8 when I heard her say that. I didn't understand it then the way I understand it now. Easy meant low maintenance. Easy meant nobody had to work very hard to keep me happy. Easy meant I learned very young to stop asking for things. Our father, Walter. No, I won't use that name. It's already taken in family lore, I won't repeat. Our father was a quiet man who worked at the regional gas company for 31 years, and mostly let our mother run the household the way she wanted. He loved us both. I believe that, but he wasn't the one making decisions about birthday parties, or who got the bigger bedroom, or whose school recital got attended live and who's got, "We'll catch the next one, sweetheart." That was all our mother, Eleanor, and Eleanor had decided a long time, before I could talk, that Carol was the daughter worth investing in. I got good at being self-sufficient. I babysat for money instead of asking for an allowance. I worked through college instead of asking my parents to help. When I got married at 26, to a steady, kind man named Robert, my mother's only comment at the wedding was that she was relieved I'd finally found someone who'd put up with me. She said it laughing, like it was an affectionate joke. Carol laughed too. I smiled and let it go, the way I'd been letting things go my whole life. Robert and I had 2 children. Our daughter Megan is 28 now, married to a good man named Tyler, and 7 months pregnant with their first baby, my first grandchild. Our son lives 2 states away, and isn't part of this story much, except to say he's the one who, years later, told me flatly that he'd always known Carol treated me differently, and never understood why I let it slide. Robert passed away 6 years ago. Heart attack. Sudden, no warning, the kind of grief that doesn't announce itself politely. Carol came to the funeral. She cried more than I did, if I'm being honest, which struck me even then as strange, since she'd never particularly liked Robert and made that clear at every Thanksgiving for 20 years. But grief does strange things to people, and I didn't have the energy to examine it. I just got through the funeral, and then I got through the year after, and then somehow I got through 5 more. Carol's daughter, my niece, is named Whitney. Whitney got married 11 months ago, and I was asked to be a bridesmaid. I said yes immediately, because despite everything, I have spent my whole adult life trying not to be the bitter aunt, the resentful sister, the woman who keeps score. I have done the work, therapy, mostly, after Robert died, when the grief cracked something open in me and made it impossible to keep pretending old wounds had healed on their own. I went to that wedding in a beautiful sage green gown, exactly matching the Bridesmaid, and I smiled in every photo, and I meant it. So when Carol called me in March to tell me that Megan, my own daughter, mind you, hosting her own baby shower, had asked Carol to help coordinate the look for the family. Since Carol has such a good eye for these things, I felt the old familiar twist in my stomach, but I told myself to let it go. Megan loves her Aunt Carol. They've always been close. Closer in some ways than Megan and I have managed to be, which is its own quiet grief I've made peace with. I told myself this would be fine. Carol called me 2 weeks before the shower. She said the theme was soft yellow and white, gender neutral since Megan and Tyler want the sex to be a surprise. She said she'd already ordered outfits for the close family to wear, something coordinated for photos. She said she had my measurements for the wedding and she'd take care of everything. I should have asked more questions. I know that now. But I trusted her. The way you trust a person you've known your entire life, even when every instinct underneath the trust is whispering otherwise. The day before the shower, a socks arrived at my door. I opened it expecting soft yellow. What I found was a dress in a shade of orange so bright it looked like safety equipment. Not a pastel, not a muted apricot that could pass as intentional in low light. Traffic cone orange. And the tag inside read a size that wasn't mine. 2 sizes larger than what I wear. The kind of large that would make the fabric pool and bunch in all the wrong places. I called Carol immediately. She picked up on the third ring, breezy, like she'd been expecting something pleasant. Carol, I think there's been a mistake. This isn't yellow, it's not even close. There was a pause, just a half-second too long. Oh, that's actually intentional, Linda. I wanted you to stand out a little as the grandmother. Everyone else is in soft yellow, but I thought you, as the matriarch now, should really pop in photos. I sat with for a second. Pop! You'll look great. Trust me. Carol, the size is wrong too, this isn't my size. Another pause. I must have grabbed the wrong number off an old list. It's probably fine, you can pin it. I want to tell you I pushed harder right then, that I demanded answers, that I made her explain herself properly. I didn't. I've spent 54 years not pushing, and old patterns don't dissolve just because you've noticed them. I told her I'd figure it out, and I hung up, and I sat at my kitchen table holding a dress that didn't fit, in a color that didn't belong, feeling something I recognized instantly, even though I hadn't felt it in this specific shape in a very long time. I felt 8 years old again, standing in a doorway, watching my mother's attention land somewhere else. I called Megan that night carefully, trying not to put her in the middle of anything. I asked gently what the dress code actually was. Soft yellow and white, Mom? Didn't Aunt Carol tell you? She said she had it all handled. Megan sounded distracted, tired, 7 months pregnant and dealing with her own swollen ankles and her own to-do list. I didn't want to load this onto her. I'm sure whatever she sent is fine, Megan added. She said she wanted to make sure you felt special since you're the grandma. Special. There it was again. That word doing a lot of quiet, ugly work. I didn't tell Megan what the dress actually looked like. I told myself I'd handle it myself, the way I'd handled everything for 54 years. I called the boutique listed on the garment bag's tag, a small shop 2 towns over that I recognized from Whitney's wedding. The woman who answered remembered the order. Yes, the order for the shower. There were 6 outfits total, 5 in pale yellow, 1 in tangerine. The tangerine was specifically requested, ma'am. Your sister was very clear about it being a different style entirely, not just a different color. She said it was for a special honoree. A special honoree. I asked the woman to read me the order details and she did, professional and a little confused by my questions. 5 dresses, same flowing chiffon style, pale yellow, correct sizes matched to a list Carol had provided. 1 dress, mine, ordered as a structured, stiff bodice style in bright orange, 2 sizes larger than every measurement I'd given for the wedding 11 months earlier. Not a mistake. A decision. Made on purpose, weeks in advance, by my own sister. I hung up the phone and sat very still in my kitchen for a long time. Here's what I want you to understand about that stillness, because I think it's the part people skip over when they imagine moments like this. There was no dramatic music. I didn't cry, not right away. I felt something colder and quieter than anger. Something closer to recognition. Like a puzzle I'd been almost solving my whole life had just clicked the last piece into place, and the picture it made wasn't a surprise. It was just finally undeniable. I thought about not going. I thought about calling Megan and telling her everything, laying it all out, letting the chips fall. I thought about calling Carol back and screaming at her, finally, after 50 years of not screaming. I sat with all of those options the way you'd hold 3 different stones in your palm, weighing them, and then I made a decision that surprised even me. I was going to wear the dress. I had it taken in that same evening by a tailor who does rush jobs. A kind man named Otis who's altered half my wardrobe over the years and no questions when I showed up at 7 p.m. with an emergency. He couldn't make it fit perfectly. There wasn't enough fabric to remove without ruining the structure, but he got it close enough that I wouldn't be drowning in it, just standing out. Standing out in the worst possible color, surrounded by soft yellow, at my own daughter's baby shower, deliberately positioned there by my sister, for reasons I still didn't fully understand. But I knew one thing with total clarity. I was not going to give Carol the satisfaction of watching me cancel, or cry, or make a scene. I was going to walk into that shower exactly as planned, and I was going to let the truth do what truth always eventually does when you stop trying to manage it for other people. I was going to let it surface on its own. The shower was held at a banquet room attached to a garden center. All soft string lights and white folding chairs, and a dessert table arranged in shades of butter yellow. It was lovely. Megan looked radiant, glowing in the particular way pregnant women glow when they're loved and well, sitting in a wicker chair decorated with ribbon like a throne. I walked in wearing tangerine orange among a sea of pastel, and I watched, very calmly, as every single person in that room did a double take. Carol was already there, in pale yellow herself, looking immaculate, looking pleased in a way she tried very hard to disguise as simple hostess satisfaction. She came over and air-kissed my cheek and said, loud enough for the women nearby to hear, "Doesn't Linda look bold today?" I told her she had to really commit to standing out as the grandma. A few women laughed politely, uncertainly. One of Megan's friends, a young woman I didn't know well, looked at me with an expression of open confusion, like she was trying to do math that didn't add up. I smiled. I said, "Carol has such a good eye for color, doesn't she?" I want to tell you that landed exactly the way I meant it. Dry and pointed, but mostly it just got swallowed in the noise of a party getting underway. Gifts being stacked, mimosas being poured for everyone except the guest of honor. I sat through 2 hours of games, guessing the size of Megan's belly with a string, a diaper-changing relay with a blindfolded Tyler that had everyone howling. And I smiled through every photo, orange dress and all, because I had decided very deliberately not to give anyone a single moment of satisfaction. It was during the gift opening that things started to shift. Tyler's mother, a woman named Patricia who I'd met only a handful of times but always liked, came and sat beside me during a lull. She leaned in, quiet, careful. "I have to ask, is everything okay with the dress situation? I noticed the colors don't quite match, and I overheard a little of what your sister said earlier." I considered for half a second, brushing it off the way I'd brushed off 50 years of smaller versions of this exact moment. Instead, I told her the truth, plainly, without drama. I told her about the call, about the boutique, about the deliberate sizing. Patricia's face changed as I spoke, from polite curiosity to something sharper. "That's not an accident," she said. "That's cruelty with a bow on it." I didn't say anything to that. I didn't have to. She'd said it for me. What I didn't know, what I only pieced together weeks later, was that Patricia mentioned what I'd told her to her husband during the drive home. And her husband happened to mention it, almost in passing, to Tyler that same night, while they were watching a ball game and unwinding from the party. Tyler, it turns out, doesn't let things go quietly the way I always have. He brought it to Megan 2 days later, gently, the way you bring a hard thing to someone who's 7 months pregnant and doesn't need extra stress. He told her what his mother had overheard, and what I'd apparently confirmed. Megan called me that night. I could hear in her voice, immediately, that something had cracked open in her that hadn't been cracked before. "Mom, is it true? Did Aunt Carol order that dress on purpose? In the wrong size, on purpose?" I told her the truth. All of it, calmly, the boutique call included. There was a long silence on the line, long enough that I asked if she was still there. "I'm here," Megan said. Her voice had gone very flat, very tired. "I just keep thinking about every time growing up that I noticed things felt unfair between you and Aunt Carol. And I told myself I was imagining it because you never said anything. You never once said anything, Mom. I didn't want it to be your burden," I said. "It still isn't. It's not a burden. It's the truth. You let everyone treat you like the easy one your whole life, and I just absorbed that, and never thought to ask if it was actually true, or if you were just exhausted." I didn't have an answer for that right away. Some truths take a beat to land, even when you've known them for decades. Carol called me 4 days later, furious, having clearly heard from someone in the family that Megan and Tyler were upset with her. She accused me of going behind her back, of turning her own niece against her, of making a simple styling choice into some kind of family scandal. "It was not a styling choice, Carol," I said. "I called the boutique myself. They read me the order. You asked for a different style, a different color, a size too larger than mine, weeks in advance. That's not an accident you can talk your way out of. You always do this," she said. "You always make yourself the victim." I wore the dress, Carol. I didn't say a word to anyone all afternoon. The only person who created a problem that day was you. She hung up on me, the way people do when they've run out of better arguments. My mother called 2 days after that. Eleanor is 81 now, sharp as ever, And she'd clearly gotten her version of events from Carol first. She told me I needed to call Carol and smooth things over. That family doesn't air grievances like this. That I was always so sensitive about things that weren't worth the energy. I let her finish. Then I told her calmly about the boutique, about the order, about 50 years of being the easy one, while Carol got to be the one whose feelings mattered. I told her about the dance recital she missed and the birthday she forgot the year I turned 12. Because Carol had a science fair that same week, and how I had genuinely never once brought any of it up. Until this exact phone call, because I'd spent my whole life deciding it wasn't worth the conflict. There was a long silence. Then my mother said, in a voice I hadn't heard from her in years, quieter than I expected, "I didn't realize you'd kept track of all of that." "I didn't keep track, Mom. I just remember my own life." She didn't apologize, not exactly, not the way I might have wanted as a younger woman. But she didn't ask me to call Carol again either, and from my mother, at 81, that's its own kind of admission. The real shift, though, came from somewhere I never engineered. Patricia, Tyler's mother, had apparently mentioned the whole situation to a close friend of hers, a woman who happened to run a small lifestyle blog, focused on family relationships and aging parents. The kind of niche corner of the internet I didn't even know existed, until it mattered to me directly. That friend wrote a post, without using anyone's real name, about a mother who wore a deliberately wrong dress to her own daughter's baby shower rather than make a scene. And the quiet dignity of choosing not to perform your own humiliation. It wasn't about Carol by name. It wasn't about me by name. But it traveled. The way these things do, shared and reshared. And somewhere along the line, someone in our extended family recognized enough details to put it together and mentioned it at a cousin's barbecue. And from there it moved through the family. The way water moves through cracks you didn't know were there. I never asked for any of that. I never wanted to be a cautionary tale on a stranger's blog. But I also can't say I was sorry that the truth, once it started moving, didn't need my help to keep going. Carol and I haven't spoken since that phone call. It's been 3 months now. I don't know if we'll repair it. And for the first time in my life, I'm not desperate to be the one who fixes it. I've spent 5 decades absorbing the cost of keeping the peace in that family. And I am, for the first time, allowing myself to simply let a silence exist without rushing to fill it with an apology that was never mine to give. My granddaughter was born 6 weeks ago. Megan named her after no one in particular, which I think, knowing my daughter, was its own quiet statement. I held her in the hospital room, this brand new person, with her whole unwritten life ahead of her. And I made a promise to myself. The kind you don't say out loud, because saying it out loud makes it about you instead of her. I promised that whatever patterns existed in this family, the ones about who gets noticed and who gets managed, whose feelings count, and whose get filed away as sensitive, those patterns end with me. Not because I'm bitter, because I finally understand what they cost, and I refuse to hand that bill to another generation. The orange dress is still hanging in my closet. I haven't gotten rid of it. Some days I look at it and feel the old sting, sharp and specific, the particular hurt of being humiliated by someone who was supposed to be in your corner. But most days now I look at it and feel something steadier. Something that feels less like anger and more like proof. Proof that I stood exactly where I was put in the color I was handed, and I didn't shrink. Not once. If you've ever been the one in the wrong dress, the wrong seat, the wrong shade, in a room full of people who decided you should stand out for all the wrong reasons, I want you to know something I wish someone had told me 40 years ago. Being treated as less than was never proof that you were less than. It was only ever proof of what the other person couldn't bring themselves to see clearly. The truth doesn't need you to perform it. It just needs you to stop apologizing for taking up the space you were always entitled to.